We are live. Fantastic. Greetings, everybody. This is David Avocado Wolf. I'm joined by Sacred Steve Adler over at Sacred Chocolate, and we're beaming to you live from the Sacred Chocolate Factory, and quite an alchemical factory going on there. We're here to talk to you about the latest update in chocolate. Which, by the way, Sacred Steve, I got an amazing discovery that happened today in chocolate, and it was something that came up in this book I've been writing. And you want to hear what it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got folks joining us from all over the world, and if you're with us right now, hang in tight because we're going to cover a lot of information over the next, I think, what are we looking at, an hour together here?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. So I was doing some research on the phenols in chocolate, or flavonoids in chocolate, and basically chocolate really has nothing to do with vegetables. It really has a lot to do with fruits and the fruit pigments. And so I kept drilling in on that because I really want to find out what kind of those fruit pigments are in cacao butter. And I came across this. Chocolate contains resveratrol.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you know, we keep uncovering another mystery after another mystery after another mystical aspect of cacao. So it's to be expected.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I saw that and I thought that, it's kind of obvious. All right, so yeah, it's got fruit pigments in it, therefore it's very likely going to have the same fruity pigments that are in grapes and berries, and resveratrol is one of those. And if you don't know what resveratrol is, that's the thing that's in wine, it's especially prevalent in the darker wines that has anti-aging properties. I mean, ubiquitous anti-aging properties, which means all far-reaching anti-aging properties. And it basically, the research indicates that it's the cause of the French paradox, where people can eat pretty much anything, for the 70 years of their life and live to 90. So they get an extra probably 20 years as a result of the power of resveratrol and what it does at the cellular level. So maybe we should start at this, Sacred Steve. I wanted to talk a little bit about grapes and hops and then the cannabis plant, because we've got this holy hemp bar out, and that's a big focus of what we're going to be talking about here for the next hour. One of the things that I've been researching is, yeah, there's the holy hemp. If you could back that up just a little bit so it comes into focus, just right about where your face is. Yeah, there's the holy hemp bar, the latest project at Sacred Chocolate, delivering that cannabidiol, which by the way, today I found out one of my employees has a child who has epilepsy, and about every 2 weeks for years has had grand mal seizures, where it loses control of every body function. Like, really, it's a serious condition. And since she's been on the CBD, since this child's been on the CBD, no seizures.
Wow, that's the best news ever.
No change in diet either. No change in diet, just from one single ingredient, which is really a shocking discovery. And this discovery about the power of CBD is so shocking that it's actually breaking down all of the cannabis judgment. All the judgments that people have about this plant, it's actually breaking it down. And we are very proud to introduce you to the Holy Hemp Bar, which is the next phase of the whole thing about CBD and what it's going to be doing in the world, and how it's going to be innovating and changing the way we think about the cannabis plant, because CBD is extraordinarily neuroprotective. It's one of the most neuroprotective substances ever found, meaning it protects our nervous system, and it may be the most neuroprotective substance that's ever been found. So that's the latest on that. So now, one of the things that was interesting in this research on CBD, and it's something that came out of our experience with the xanthohumol, is that there's a close association between the grape plant, the hops plant, and the cannabis plant. All of them together. What do we have there, Sacred Steve? Which one's that? Is that the...
This is holy hemp in the little mini heart format. So these are little bite-sized pieces of the holy hemp, and you can see the actual hemp seeds sprinkled on top of the little bite-sized hearts. These are little 1.8 gram bite-sized hearts.
Fantastic. That's the latest thing over at Sacred Chocolate, is the mini hearts. And I have a feeling that the mini hearts are going to be going, there it is. Look at the size of that. Wow. Back in the day, in the early 70s, we remember, Steve, growing up with Hershey's Kisses, right?
Exactly.
I think the mini hearts are going to be one of those kind of products.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, over the years, a lot of people have said, hey, can you just make a little bite-sized chocolate? And so we finally did, and here it is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's jump back to where we were. So there's a relationship between the grape plant, the hops plant. You know, you remember maybe seeing hops on beer cans. I mean, that's where I first saw the word hops. I had no idea what hops was. It's a preservative and a flavoring agent that's been used in beer, and it's a flower that's used from the hops plant. So it's like the cannabis plant, the part that's used is the flower. So we have grape, we have cannabis, and we have hops, and they're all very closely related to each other. So the secondary metabolites of these plants have been of great interest to scientists for some time, at least the last 30 years, probably much longer, but in the last 30 years, there's been a lot of analytical science that's been turned onto these plants, and that's led to the discovery of the great phenols that are in grapes like quercetin, the great phenols that are in grapes like resveratrol that have ubiquitous or all-encompassing protective qualities. So resveratrol at the cellular level is for example, it shuts down viral replication in the first 2 stages. It makes the cell immune to the signaling agents of xeno or fake estrogens. It's able to shut down the inflammatory process in the cell at the first couple stages. Now, because of all of the interest in grapes, somebody got smart and said, hey, maybe we better look at something that's similar to grapes, namely hops. And in fact, I don't know about you, Steve, but I've seen hops plants that I couldn't distinguish from grape plants. That's how close they are. They're very,
Wow.
yeah, they can be that identical where you're like, I don't know if that's a hops or grapes. I don't know what that is. And especially when they sprout, you can't tell which one it is. So anyway, somebody got really into exploring hops and finding out, oh, wait a second, maybe there's something there, and there is, and it's called xanthohumol. Now, xanthohumol is the source, as you know, Sacred Steve, of the Sacred Chocolate Longevity Bliss Bar and of the Hops X Factor. Maybe, do you have any of those next to you there? Let's show those. There's the Longevity Bliss Chocolate Bar, and then there's the Hops X Factor. Come in and check that out. Now, those are based on what is now really considered the king of the flavonoids. The queen is resveratrol. The king is xanthohumol. And they're gold in color, so the actual compound is golden color. Resveratrol is purple in color. And so purple has more to do with central nervous system protection. Gold has more to do with being a very broad spectrum anti-inflammatory and tissue repair type of substance. So we're going to get to a really interesting discovery about these in a minute, but I just want to make sure everybody knows where we're going and what these things are. The next thing was looking at the cannabis plant, because the cannabis plant, all we ever heard about the cannabis plant is like THC, it's psychoactive, it's bad, you know, it's a gateway drug. You know, meanwhile, alcohol is perfectly fine and legal, and alcohol is killing more people than all drugs combined times 10. But you know, alcohol, that's fine, but cannabis, bad news. You know, we all were indoctrinated with that kind of garbage. And what's happened is, fortunately, the other 59 cannabinoids in this plant have been looked at very heavily by some pretty darn amazing scientists. And it turns out that the second dominant cannabinoid, which is not THC, that's the first dominant cannabinoid, is CBD. So it's actually CBD in structure and the way that the plant creates it as a secondary metabolite is very similar to xanthohumol, and it's very similar to resveratrol. And it turns out it has ubiquitous, again, I love that word, all-encompassing protective qualities. So it's able to shield, for example, from nervous system disasters, which is what epilepsy is about, which is what seizures are about. You know, we've had incredible reports coming in of people who've had kids, listen to this, 100 seizures a day, 3 days on CBD down to 0. So, like, literally miraculous changes. And again, this is why the whole thing about cannabis is breaking down. Now, the problem with cannabis over all these years is we totally did the wrong thing, and that is we bred this plant for high THC and low CBD. And it appears that the opposite is really what we need to protect ourselves from all the toxins in the environment and the pollutants in the environment in certain conditions, certain nervous system conditions. And so what's been found to be the ideal ratio, because people have been asking me this, and I know that some of our folks who are watching right now are wondering, is 19 parts CBD, 1 part THC appears to be the ideal ratio. Now, we can't do that with our CBD chocolate because we can't sell THC. It's illegal. But the CBD, we can. And so, we don't have that THC component. But just for your own recognition and knowledge, that appears to be what the research is indicating. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to back us up here, Steve, on this whole thing. And I want to talk a little bit about what's been kind of understood about these secondary metabolites. Now, one of the biggest problems of these secondary metabolites of fruit pigments, and cannabis falls into more of the fruit pigments, hops falls more into the fruit pigment group, and grapes, fruit pigment group. One of the problems is that they're very hard to deliver in their whole form to the cells. They break down too quickly. Okay, so when we're dealing with vegetable pigments like lycopene, or when we're dealing with vegetable pigments like beta-carotene or alpha-carotene or lutein, those are relatively easy to get to the cells in their whole form, and they're very powerful if they get to the cells in their whole form, but they're not as powerful as these fruit pigments that can get to the cells in their whole form. So typically what's happening, let's say Sacred Steve, one of our favorite fruits, is blueberries. We love blueberries. And when we eat blueberries, they're rich in anthocyanins, which gives them their color. And this is an incredible eye nutrient, for example. But most of those anthocyanins are broken down immediately in the digestive tract and never make it to the eyes. In fact, what the research indicates is we're lucky if even 1% of those anthocyanins actually make it all the way to the cells. Now that's astonishing. That's a totally different story than what's going on with lycopene. If you blend like tomatoes and you put a little bit of fat and oil in there, let's say you put olive oil in there, and then you warm it up a little bit, the amount that's actually going to make it through is about 60%. That actually makes it to your cells. That's really a high amount. That's like incredible. But with these fruit pigments like xanthohumol in hops and resveratrol in grapes or resveratrol in Saskatoon berries or some of the other berries that they show up in, hardly any of it makes it. That doesn't mean that there's a bad thing happening. It means that it's broken down into its component, what are called phenolic acids, which are really good for you. They're great for your cardiovascular system. They're great for signaling mutated cells. They break up the signaling patterns of mutated cells. It has very powerful detoxification effects, but you don't get the whole benefit. So what I'm driving at here, and I think you know where I'm going here, Steve, because we've been talking about this for years, it's delivery. The delivery of these fruit pigments is a very big issue, and it is the issue of the future. So here's where we are. Is we've now come into contact with a scientist who knows how to make resveratrol fat soluble. That's a big issue because a big problem of resveratrol is getting it into the cells, and basically that's what led to the development of wine. Is there's stuff passing through or being broken down. We're not getting all the goodies, but if it's an alcohol in there, it drives it in. The alcohol's a driver. So that's kind of originally how people develop wine in the first place. They somehow intuitively realized or intuitionally realized that they're not getting all the goodies that are there. They're being broken down. Now with xanthohumol, we got two problems. One is there's other compounds with the xanthohumol and hops that we may not want, like isoxanthohumol or 8-prenylnaringin, and that those compounds are they're estrogens, they're phytoestrogens, and if we have tons and tons and tons of that stuff, it creates a beer belly. So we don't want that stuff. So, and then the other thing with xanthohumol is that it's going to get broken down. It's not going to get there. So then we got the fat-soluble xanthohumol. That became the Longevity Bliss product, right, Steve?
Yeah, exactly.
Show that again.
Yeah.
So there's that incredible Longevity Bliss product, which, as we know, we accidentally stumbled into what I believe, and I think you believe as well, Sacred Steve, is the best tasting chocolate bar ever.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It was a crazy alchemy that took place, but it basically resulted in probably the most amazing chocolate profile I've ever experienced personally.
Me too as well. And I tell people that I'm up here in and doing tours and stuff, and talking to audiences, and I'm saying, hey, this is the best tasting chocolate bar in the history of the world. I know that you won't believe that, but as soon as people taste it, it's just amazing what goes on with their face. They're like, like it actually, like, wait a second, this might be the best tasting chocolate bar in the world, and it was all basically an accident, right?
Yeah, total. I mean, sometimes you just come across things by trial and error, and this is one of those instances.
So what's going on with xanthohumol? It's been made fat soluble, and then the scientist who's been working with the fat soluble xanthohumol came to us and said, I think this would be best delivered in chocolate because chocolate has oils in it, and then we get the xanthohumol into the oils, and that became that chocolate bar right there. That Longevity Bliss chocolate bar became that, which actually has 3 doses. Each bar has 3 doses of the xanthohumol in it. So it's a pretty good dose, each one of those chocolate bars. And that's really an amazing breakthrough. And then now we're at the next stage, which is the whole holy hemp bar. We're getting the CBD into that highly bioavailable chocolate format. And the thing about CBD that's already really great is that it's already fat soluble. So we get that right into the chocolate bar, and boom, it's on. So Steve, I think at this point I want you to tell everybody how you came up with the actual flavor of the holy hemp bar and what's in it and some of those details.
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, years ago, I produced a hemp-based bar for a company named Elements for Life, and that was a multi-level marketing company that we were involved in for a while, and we loved their products. They were doing colloidal gold products and things like that. And when we developed that bar for them, I was just struck by how the hemp flavor in cacao just works synergistically so amazingly. So that always kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And then, obviously, with this whole kind of revolution with CBDs and the fact that Obama just signed the Farm Bill, which allows the farming of industrial hemp in America, and just this whole move to now, states have legalized, medical marijuana use and even recreational marijuana use. It seems like the tide is turning on the hemp plant, on the cannabis plant in general in America. So that, combined with the fact that actually my grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's, my mom currently suffers from Alzheimer's, those kind of things all came together to inspire me to actually start working on a hemp-focused bar, which obviously now is the Holy Hemp Bar. And I want to, I never actually had a source of CBD-rich hemp oil, which is in the bar. Here's a key thing, is that what is actually in this bar is CBD-rich hemp oil. It's not an isolated CBD, which is actually still considered a pharmaceutical. So this is actually, it's a whole food. The CBD in this is actually it's an enriched hemp oil that's in the bar, and it's a raw hemp oil as well. So it hasn't been heat treated. Most of the CBD out there is what's called decarboxylated, and you can look that up on Google and get into the details of that. But this is what's called non-decarboxylated. So it's it has more of its original plant constituents associated with it. So this hemp oil has a lot of the original raw plant constituents in it, as well as that concentrated level of CBD that's coming from high CBD strains of cannabis. So that is what is in the bar, along, of course, with whole hemp seed. And just for fun, I sprinkled some salt on top and some hemp seeds. So I wanted to create a bar that obviously tastes great, but also that you can tell the potency. So when you actually bite into this bar, you can tell it's a medicinal bar. It's similar to, say, if anybody out there has experienced our Amazonian bar or immuno mushroom bar, you can tell that these bars are delivering potent medicine, and you can tell that definitely with the holy hemp. You can taste that strong hemp concentrated flavor in the bar.
I wanted to mention for everybody who's joining us right now, I'm David Avocado Wolf. This is Sacred Steve, who's been speaking to you. We're really talking to you about what's happening at the cutting edge at Sacred Chocolate, which Steve, years ago, about 10 years ago, he committed his life to making the first raw chocolate bar that was really like a chocolate bar, that had the real melt-in-your-mouth flavor of a chocolate bar. And I kept saying, I don't know if it's possible, and he kept saying, it's possible, it's possible, it's possible. So we've had many, many years of experience in the chocolate world with cold processing chocolate bars. That's led to some of the most innovative bars out there, including the Amazonian bar that you just mentioned, the Immuno Mushroom bar, some of the old bars that we used to produce way back when, which we don't have anymore. What were some of those? Those were fun. What was was Pacific Paradise? Was that the one?
Yeah, we had a bar. We had a bar, Pacific Paradise, obviously with a pretty high dose of kava in it, as well as noni fruit. And a lot of these bars we may bring back in the future just for the fun of it, for seasonal kind of highlights. But we had a bar also with jungle peanuts in it. We had a bar with actual purple sage and rose in it. We had a bar with orange peel and lemon peel in it. So we've done a lot of things over the years, that's for sure.
And still offering a tremendous amount of interesting bars, including the Longevity Bliss bar, and then we're obviously now pretty far into the CBD bar, the Holy Hemp. But the next one after that is going to be the resveratrol bar. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be called yet, but it's going to be a pretty amazing product, and that's going to have that fat-soluble resveratrol in it with the associated phenols that naturally come with resveratrol. So it's more, again, that whole food picture, the same as what's going on with Holy Hemp. So we get the better delivery. Now, go ahead.
Let me just mention one thing. Yeah, we're getting close to the resveratrol bar. I'm really excited. I just want to mention that the resveratrol we're going to be using is it's basically ensconced in its sort of it has a special delivery mechanism. It's protected and it has a delivery mechanism so that it has probably a timeline in your body of up to 12 hours. From what I understand from the microbiologists we're working with, most of the resveratrol that anybody purchases, say at a supplement store, only will last in your body for maybe up to 3 hours, and then it's broken down and it will not get into your cells at all. That's a really short time. So from what I understand, most of the resveratrol you take just as a supplement is just kind of literally goes down the toilet. So you need something that will sustain, to have a long sustaining time in your body so it has a good chance of getting your cells. We're using that resveratrol. In addition to that, we're including all the other great polyphenols in this bar. So this is going to be a true nutraceutical bar in that we're using a specially extracted resveratrol that has a special delivery mechanism. We're also including all those great polyphenols, and we should actually have our first batch of that by the end of August. We'll probably be out with that bar, I'd say, by the end of September or the end of October. So that's coming real soon.
That's coming real soon. And we got a lot of folks who are watching right now, Steve, who are affiliates of Sacred Chocolate or want to be affiliated with Sacred Chocolate. Tell us about how folks can become affiliates if they want to do that. It's all the instructions on the website. Walk us through it, Sacred Steve.
Yeah, it's easy. If you just go to the Sacred Chocolate website, go to www.sacredchocolate.com. If you just navigate up to the upper right-hand part of the website, you'll see a little link up there that just says affiliates. And if you just click on that little link, you'll be able to sign up as an affiliate, an online affiliate for Sacred Chocolate for free of charge. Sacred Chocolate pays a 10% commission on all sales. Currently, we just lowered the disbursement level from $100 to $50, just to motivate more affiliates out there to, obviously get behind Sacred Chocolate. So it's just, if you believe in what we're doing, you believe in our products, you love our products, it's just a great way to, to help us, get the word out. I mean, we're basically a labor of love here, so we don't have huge marketing budgets, and all of this has been just sweat equity and money out of our own pocket. So we do really require a lot of grassroots efforts out there just to basically keep our business going.
And also, just for those folks who aren't website savvy or who want to call Sacred Chocolate, what's the number to call Sacred Chocolate? Yeah,
it's 415-883-1311. So again, that number is 415-883-1311. And you can always contact us through our website. We've got a contact form on our website. And if you just want to email direct into us, you could always email sacredsales@sacredchocolate.com. So it's just one word, sacred sales, and then @sacredchocolate.com.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that. And again, Sacred Chocolate is a grassroots operation, and we've developed and innovated the machinery, the technology, all the way from the bottom up. And it's been a labor of love. And this man right here, Sacred Steve, is in there every single day. He's put a lot of sweat equity into it, and it's really helpful if you guys can help us get the word out there, because we do believe that these bars are not only the best tasting chocolate bars out there. We believe from the research that these are the best for us. They're the best for our health, especially when we get into some of these really amazing nutraceutical bars. For example, the Longevity Bliss bar, now the Holy Hemp bar, and soon to be coming that resveratrol chocolate bar, which is just a couple months away. Okay, let's jump back. I wanted to talk about our main subject tonight, which is, again, the CBD, which is cannabinol. And I had written an article called Invasion of the Cannabinoids, which you can find on the Sacred Chocolate website. If you just hunt around on there, you can see that. And I wanted to get into a little bit about what's been learned about CBD. There's an incredible amount of research that's piled up that indicates that CBD is extraordinarily neuroprotective. It protects our nervous system. You've heard Steve talk about his family history of Alzheimer's. How are we going to protect ourselves from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's? And this is literally a plague of the 21st century. Well, we've got to have the tools. We've got to have the chemicals that can protect us from the industrial solvents and the other things that are in our environment and the stress in our environment that is causing all of this stuff. And CBD appears to be preeminent in that regard. CBD is also immunomodulatory, so it has effects on our immune system. In fact, all cannabinoids do. And so there's been a huge amount of money, I mean billions of dollars, have been poured into cannabinoid research because of the immunomodulatory effect of cannabinoids. And then there's also, the whole thing of just how are we going to actually get the feel-good chemicals into our body that aren't overtly psychoactive. So cannabinoids can be feel-good, but it's not overtly psychoactive where, it's suddenly like a THC high. And so it meets us right at that place where we want to be. That chocolate's like that too, where you get something from it. It's a state change, but it's not going to get you drunk. It's not going to get you high. It's not going to cause you to be so far out of your homeostatic zone that you could hurt yourself or not be able to operate a car or something like that. And that's another really important thing, because we got to get honest about our discussion about these things, right? People are drinking every night or drinking on weekends, and meanwhile they're against drugs. I mean, drinking is a drug, and it's a very dangerous drug. And so how do we get honest about these things? I was talking with a friend of mine last night. We walked for 5 miles on this subject, about we got to have things that can help us relieve the stress, but aren't actually going to lead us to a point or to lead us over a certain limit where we could endanger the lives of ourselves or others. And that's where these great foods like chocolate come in. That's where the CBD comes in. That's where the Longevity Bliss bar comes in, where it gives us a subtle little protection, a little something, but it's not too overt. Okay, wanted to talk about a little bit about the alchemy that you put together here, Steve, because the Holy Hemp bar has salt in it. Tell us about this alchemy between salt and chocolate, and a little bit about, again, the structure of this bar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bar itself is 65% cacao. It's sweetened with maple. It has salt. Actually, it has 2 types of salt sprinkled on top. Salt from Utah and from its Himalayan pink crystal salt from the Himalayas. And basically, from my understanding, well, there's a huge trend in the industry. I mean, salt and chocolate seem to be just a trend in the chocolate industry right now. But besides that, I remember just learning from you, David, years ago that whenever the human body is digesting fat, salt always assists in the digestion of fat. So I know that salt in general just helps with digestion, and so it's a combination. It actually has an alchemical sort of benefit in helping digest the fats in chocolate, but then also it has this great kind of sweet salt combination, which for whatever reason humans just love that combination. It seems like after we've had something sweet, sometimes our bodies sort of tend towards something salty and vice versa. So it's just a great combination. We have another bar that's also kind of salty called the goji nibby that has goji berries in it, and it has salt sprinkled on top as well.
Everybody asks me all the time, Sacred Steve, and I'm sure you get this too, about organic chocolate and what our commitment is to organic, and to quality. And so I want to talk a little bit about our organic standards and also the maple sugar and why we use that and how that fits into all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we've always believed in organics from day one. I mean, Sacred Chocolate's certified organic through CCOF. You know, we're always making sure that everything we're putting into the bars is certified organic, or at least we know for a fact that it's wildcrafted. It's, you know, there are no pesticides, no chemical fertilizers used in the process. So that's just super key. I mean, I think just starting off in this in the raw food industry, in the raw food lifestyle, that was just sort of a given for me. And so anything that I was ever going to do, whether it was going into a food business or putting food in my mouth, you know, the highest priority was, you know, making sure that it was organic. The other thing that's key about organic, and I like to tell this to everybody, is that, you know, always be sure to, you know, if it's not Sacred Chocolate, if you're buying whatever chocolate out there, you know, make sure that it's always certified organic, or at least fair trade certified, because if it's not, chances are the farmers are not really getting a fair wage out there, and especially if it's you know, if it's neither of those certifications. 70% of the world's crop currently comes from two countries in Africa, Ghana and the Ivory Coast, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of sort of child slavery taking place on those farms, and it's really sad, actually. And there's a great documentary that you could Google on YouTube. If you just Google, like, you know, cocoa slavery Africa or something, you'll find like an hour-and-a-half long documentary where a guy went in undercover cameras, and it's worth watching if you're interested in the subject, just so you know how important it is to always buy organic, always buy fair trade. So that's, you know, obviously, you know, just super key. The other thing, when I first started Sacred Chocolate, was I was trying to, you know, choose the best sweetener ever, and I just went out and played around and, you know, did a lot of research on different sweeteners that were available commercially, and I finally settled on maple for a lot of different reasons. One, it had just the most amazing flavor profile that I'd ever experienced, and so it was very floral, especially the maple we use is very special maple, so it's very super floral in nature. It's a very light maple note, and it's it really has no bitter aftertaste or anything like that. So that was, you know, obviously a huge benefit. The other thing I love about maple is it's a true wild crop. It's an eco-friendly crop. It really has just about zero impact on the environment, because maple trees are wild, and it takes 30 years before you can tap a maple tree for the maple water. People think it's maple sap that the maple sugar is coming from. It's actually not. It's water. That for 2 weeks out of the year, if the conditions are right, that you can tap a tree and it'll drip water, and it's only 1% of that water has sugar in it. So that's what ultimately becomes maple syrup and maple sugar. And so it's interesting that, you know, you can't really, you know, ever just grow a maple field. You know, it would take 30 years before you could even harvest it. So that's another thing I loved about maple, is it was super environmentally friendly. The other thing interesting about maple is it's from a nutrient perspective, it's very low in free fructose. Most of the sweeteners out there are pretty high in free fructose, and free fructose has been linked, if you follow like Dr. Mercola's work especially, it's been linked to childhood obesity, it's been linked to diabetes. So actually maple is really low in free fructose, it turns out, which is strange for a sweetener. The other thing is maple for a sweetener is pretty high in epicatechin, which is it's the big antioxidant in cacao, and it's pretty high in quercetin. So, you know, again, it kind of went really well with cacao just energetically. The other thing, it's very high in minerals. It happens to be high in zinc and manganese. But what was really interesting the last couple of years, there were some studies. One came out of the University of Rhode Island, where they isolated a compound in maple called cubicol that they've never seen before in nature, actually. And they've basically figured out that cubicol somehow mitigates the enzyme activity associated with type 2 diabetes, which was a surprise finding. The other study came out of the University of Tokyo, where basically they studied the effects of different sweeteners, including maple, on the livers of rats, and they figured out that for whatever reason, the maple was improving the liver scores of the rats. All the other sweeteners were actually degrading the liver scores and causing the rats to experience some sort of liver stress. But the maple was actually improving the scores, which was a surprise finding. So I think there's a lot that's still unknown about maple. There's a lot that's being uncovered about, regarding maple, and you know, I didn't even know that when I got into it. I just kind of went on the fact that it had amazing flavor and it was eco-friendly and it was mineralized, and that's why I chose it. But it turns out that there are all these other health benefits that I was unaware of at the time.
That's amazing. That was incredible. And I want to mention to everybody watching, one of the complaints we get often at Sacred Chocolate is, you know, what about the price? I mean, to manufacture a chocolate product in California and deal with the taxes, all of the bureaucracy, all of the hidden costs, all of the costs of the maple, which is 10 times the price of cane sugar, 10 times the price of cane sugar. I just want everybody to understand that. For whatever reason, our culture has trained us to just go cheap on everything. And fortunately, there's enough folks out there who want quality to keep Sacred Chocolate alive and thriving and moving forward. But just so you know, it's not a very profitable business. It's one of those things. It's a labor of love, and the reason why it's a labor of love is because chocolate is about the love. And just to go through all of the different hoops that you have to go through manufacturing a product in California, and to get the high quality ingredients, you have to pay the extra money. So when you're dealing with cane sugar or even coconut palm sugar, it's dramatically cheaper than maple. Maple is extraordinarily high priced, but because of our commitment to quality, we back it. And that's what keeps Sacred Chocolate going, is just that commitment to the high quality, regardless of the price. Now, I wanted to jump in with a few questions because there's some folks who've been asking some of the questions. You already mentioned this before, Steve. I want to reiterate this. The CBD in Holy Hemp is not an isolated CBD. It's part of the matrix of how the plant delivers it. So it is not something that's just an isolated single molecule. There's also been a question, and do you want to address that again?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the CBD oil that we're using, it's actually a whole hemp oil. So imagine, you know, going to like Whole Foods and just buying hemp oil. You know, it's basically like that, only it's more concentrated than that hemp oil that you'd say that you'd buy at Whole Foods. So you wouldn't get the same thing if we just went down to Whole Foods and bought a bottle of hemp oil and put it in the chocolate. It wouldn't be the same. So what we have is a concentrated form of that hemp oil, and it's a special type of hemp oil where it includes all the other little constituents of that high CBD strain cannabis plant. So you know, when we're actually adding this to the chocolate, it's like a thick, oily paste. It's like, you know, it's like this black. It actually looks like black tar. If you ever been on, you know, I remember when I was a kid running around the beaches of Southern California. Every now and then, it's like I'd run into like a tar pit or something. I'd get tar all over my feet, and I'm like, what's going on? And now all of a sudden it's all over you. Well, it's, you know, this substance is like that. That's how like gooey and thick and rich this hemp oil is. So when I'm saying hemp oil, it's you know, it's not really consisting of oil. It's really like hemp tar is what I should say. And it's this, like I said, non-decarboxylated, so it's a raw, low-temperature processed like hemp tar that has that high concentration of the CBDA or non-decarboxylated CBD in it.
Now, people have been asking, what if I had to take a drug test? Would cannabinoids show up if I took this bar? And the answer is, it depends on how sophisticated the test is. If the test is able to distinguish between psychoactive THC and, again, non-psychoactive CBD, then the CBD will show up and THC will not show up because there's no THC in this chocolate bar. So I wanted everybody to know that. But if the test is not distinguished and is just testing for cannabinoids, then you will fail the drug test because there are cannabinoids in this product. It's actually CBD. Other folks have been asking about the aromatic qualities of chocolate. Chocolate has amazing odors, amazing smells. There's a little bit of a challenge with trying to create aromatic chocolate products and essential oil chocolate products, and that is the complexity of the aromas and flavor is so vast that it's almost impossible to create a chocolate essential oil or chocolate extract. So the chocolate essential oils and extracts that are out there really don't quite capture the whole chocolate flavor, and so they're kind of, you know, they're not really there, and it's a very difficult task to achieve. So we will probably not go down that road with sacred chocolate. It's just, I mean, the chocolate industry has been at this for 100 years trying to crack the code and has basically failed. Because chocolate is the most chemically complex food in the world. And, you know, what an amazing discovery that is. Questions about other aspects of the chocolate tree other than the fruit. Could those make it into chocolate bars at some point in the future? Totally possible. I mean, there's definitely a lot of research going on now with other pieces of the puzzle. What's in the chocolate flour? What's in the chocolate bark? What's in chocolate leaves? That could play a part in the future of chocolate. We don't know yet. I mean, our next thing is going to be this resveratrol bar. Again, the big issue about all of these flavonoids or fruit pigments is getting them in, getting them to you, and chocolate is the best delivery vehicle to do that. And if we can make that resveratrol lipophilic, which our bar will have, or make that xanthohumol lipophilic, which the Longevity Bliss chocolate bar is, or make that CBD more bioavailable because it's delivered in chocolate bar, which the Holy Hemp bar does, then, of course, we're going to go with that. Somebody asked about miracle berries. You know, miracle berries, if you've never heard of miracle berries, they're amazing. You could eat a miracle berry and then eat a lime, and it tastes sweet. So it takes the sour and turns it to sweet. It's a fascinating phenomenon. Is it possible that that could get included in chocolate in the future, or there might be an experiment with that in the future? Sure, absolutely possible in the future. Nothing on the deck right now, but definitely those types of things will be explored in the future. I've been growing miracle berries in Hawaii. It's been very difficult to get fruit. I don't think it's the ideal situation for that particular plant, so I'm very likely going to dig it up and move it maybe more into the sun, see if we can get that thing to fruit. It hasn't fruited in years, so that's where that all stands. Do you have any questions on your side, Sacred Steve, that have come in for you?
You know, I haven't seen any in particular. I think one person was just hoping to maybe touch upon the historical shamanistic combinations. I know they had mentioned that they sort of said that, you know, cannabis and chocolate was always a shamanistic combination. One thing I wanted to add to what you were just saying was that, you know, at Sacred Chocolate, what we do also is, as far as including other parts of cacao in the chocolate, we include the skin or the husk of this cacao bean. Here I'm holding a cacao bean right here in my hands, if everybody can see it. So this skin or the husk right here is normally winnowed away in the chocolate industry, and it's usually sold off as fertilizer or feed for factory farm chickens. But what we do is we include this skin or the husk in our chocolate, and I really don't think there are too many other chocolate makers worldwide who are doing this. As far as I know, after all these years of talking about it, we're still the only ones doing this. Basically it just takes a lot of time to grind this husk or skin into the chocolate itself. And the reason we were inspired to do this is to really create the most nutritious bar ever, since we're so committed to combining, you know, super flavor with super nutrition. And so, you know, what inspired me was a call that you received, or that you had, David, with a famous channeler years ago, Laurel Steinheis, if I remember, and you had asked about, you know, cacao and sacred chocolate, and some entity that she channeled had said, oh, the skin or husk of this bean has, you know, certain nutrients or components or compounds in it that helps actually promote stem cell growth in humans. And you were like, really? How do we get that? And, you know, the entity just kind of left it at that. So, well, you know, you already know how. So anyway, that inspired me to include this. And so, you know, also we're probably going to come out with a fruity bar where the whole fruit pulp is in the bar. I know already we have the Noni Land bar, which includes the fruit pulp of Noni Land cacao in it. So, you know, who knows, maybe we will eventually add cacao leaves into the chocolate. Maybe we'll add cacao bark into the chocolate, cacao roots. You know, we'll see. I mean, it's always, we're always open to experimenting. Obviously, we have things as esoteric as our gold ormus bar with pure gold ormus in it. So we really believe that chocolate is the ultimate delivery mechanism to get the highest vibe materials into our cells ever. And so we'll continue down that path. I don't know if you want to say anything about the shamanistic combination of cannabis and chocolate historically, David, or touch on that subject.
Well, the mythology and legends and lore behind these two plants are really extraordinary. I mean, chocolate is the great superfood of the New World. from Central America, the jungles of Central America, and the jungles of northern South America. This is where this superfood emanates from. And it's actually a nut. It's not a bean. It's actually a nut. It grows on a tree, and it's very fruity in its pigment concentration, which is something I've really been focusing on recently. So it doesn't really have anything to do with vegetables, but it does have a lot to do with fruits in terms of its chemical content. And it is the most widely eaten nut in the world by a very large factor, except we never eat it in its original form. We eat it in a processed form. The processed form, of course, is what we call chocolate. And what we have seen with chocolate is it's more in alignment with its original intent. Chocolate's a delivery vehicle. It's a delivery vehicle of nutraceuticals. It's a delivery vehicle of herbal substances. That's how it's always been used, whether that herbal substance was bee pollen, whether that herbal substance was cayenne pepper, whether that herbal substance was passion fruit, seed, or whatever it was. That's always in alignment with the intent of chocolate, and that's why Sacred Chocolate has constructed the bars that Sacred Chocolate delivers today. Now, jumping over to hemp. Hemp is that plant that's, it's cannabis, which is related to the word canine. So it's our pet plant. And it has to do with the Egyptians and the highest ascent of Sirius in the night sky, which apparently the cannabis plant is from the star system Sirius, the dog star, the 2-star dog, right, because it's actually a binary star system. And that holiday that we all celebrate every year that's related to this star is called New Year's Eve. That's the highest ascent of the dog star in the night sky, and that's why New Year's Eve is December 31st, January 1st. Oftentimes, if you're in the right place and without clouds, you can see the dog star because it's the brightest star in the sky on that night at its highest ascent. This is also, by the way, related to the dog days of summer. When the dog star comes down below the horizon, it then rises up above the horizon in the summertime, and we're actually in the dog days right now. So this is when things get hot and flustered. It's really hot where I'm at right now. It's like a sweat lodge in here, actually. And this is when people, would go out and rob banks and stuff. Those are called the dog days. And then the plant is the dog. It's the dog plant. Now, what does that mean? It means it's your pet. So what this means and what the mythology states is that this plant is going to correlate to wherever you are in your consciousness and wherever you are in your technology, and it's going to give you that next level. It's going to provide to you the insight that takes you to the next step. And so we're seeing that now. For example, we need neuroprotective substances. Look at the epidemic of neurological diseases. All of a sudden, this plant steps up and says, boom, here it is. We need to get to the next step in what we're making our cars out of, what we're making our houses out of, what we're making concrete out of, what we're making everything out of. This is where hemp steps in and says, boom, here's the next piece. So that's the mythology behind it. So what we're really doing is we're bringing both of these mythologies together. One's from the old world, cannabis, and one's from the new world, the cacao, the jungles of Central and South America. And that marriage is why we call it holy hemp.
All right.
Now, because we've got so many different questions that come in after the fact, we'll probably do another Google Hangout when we release the resveratrol bar. And we'll cover maybe some unanswered questions in our Google Hangout here tonight. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you sign up for the Sacred Chocolate newsletter. Steve, why don't you let everybody know how they can get on the Sacred Chocolate newsletter if they're not on it already?
Yeah, the best way is obviously just go to sacredchocolate.com. You'll see in the upper right there's a big sort of icon graphic that says join to receive coupons. So you just click on that little button, you can enter in your email address, and voila, there you have it. That's how simple it is.
Now tonight, for everybody who's joined us, we're going to be offering 15% off the Holy Hemp Bar. Do you want to give instructions for everybody on how to order that if they either call in or order on the website?
Yeah, if you call in, just obviously mention that you've heard about the online promotion for Holy Hemp, the 15% promotion, and when we take your telephone order, we'll apply that 15% discount at that time. If you're online at sacredchocolate.com, when you're checking out, that discount is automatically applied. So you'll see that 15% discount automatically applied as you check out. It's as simple as that. There's no coupon code that you need to add or anything like that.
Okay, fantastic. So 15% off on Holy Hemp for everybody who's joining us. And we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on a Wednesday evening. Steve, you have any parting words for all our viewers?
Hey, the main thing I want to say is that we love you. We appreciate your support. Thank you for supporting Sacred Chocolate. Really, it's really our love, our hearts connecting out to yours. We're committed to continuing to bring you guys the very best chocolates, the highest vibe chocolates on the planet. We're really excited about our new little bite-sized mini hearts like this. It's a great deal, so if you love Sacred Chocolate, it's a better deal than if you were to just buy the bars, obviously, because we're kind of selling it in this bulk format. And we're always going to come up with new stuff. Besides the resveratrol, we're probably going to come out with a curcumin, a super bioavailable curcumin bar, and probably be like a India Sunset on kind of a turbocharged India Sunset. So we're always looking into delivering the highest vibe nutraceuticals and herbs and superfoods and chocolate. So I just want to say thanks, David, for taking the time being on here and sharing all your expertise and your incredible knowledge, and we just appreciate everybody out there. Thank you.
Fantastic. And there's one more thing I wanted to say too, Steve, is that for all you folks who are into Hops X Factor, or you've been a fan of the Longevity Bliss Bar, which is that highly bioavailable form of xanthohumol from hops, we've got a new batch out, and it just came in. It's fresh. If you buy 3, you get 1 free. So it's basically you get 3 for the price of 2. And
Correction. It's actually, if you buy 2, you get the 3rd free. So that's how good of a deal it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I misphrased that. So you're basically getting 3 for the price of 2. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. 3 for the price of 2, and it's an improved formula with grapefruit seed extract in it. And we're really excited about it, and it's a great deal right now. So I would stock up while this promotion lasts.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We're signing off from Sacred Chocolate. I'm David Avocado Wolf. Joining me is Sacred Steve, and we are wishing you the best week ever.